Are you having a hard time getting listeners to your podcast? Is the bulk of your time spent on content creation, leaving you very little time for marketing or promotion? If you answered yes to either of those questions, then you should do what I did and reach out to Pod Boost Hub on Upwork. Pod Boost Hub brings you 100% organic promotion services. Pod Boost works around your budget and your needs. Contact them today on Upwork or even on Facebook. Pod Boost Hub. Your content, your audience, their responsibility. Hey there, listeners. Are you ready to elevate your energy game? Let me introduce you to Dubby, the energy drink brand on a mission to help you be better. Dubby is designed to give you the boost you need without the jitters or crashes that accompany many of the drinks supplied by Big Energy. Their drinks are sugar-free, calorie-free, and free from artificial colors or dyes. They launched with just one flavor, but thanks to the support of their loyal customers, they've grown to offer over 15 unique custom-made flavors. So if you're looking for a clean, delicious energy boost that helps you power through your day, look no further than Dubby. Join the movement and experience the difference for yourself. Visit WGG and use the code WW1POD for a 10% discount on your order. Remember, with Dubby, it's all about being better, one sip at a time. Alright, bills are paid. Let's get on with the show. I'm Henny B, and welcome to the World War I Stories podcast, where history comes alive through the voices of those who lived it. Some scenes in these stories may be too graphic for sensitive listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Today's episode, In the Fold. The sun had only just begun its slow crawl over the rooftops of the textile quarter when the knock came. It was too early for visitors. Radha paused, hands dusted with flour, heart already uneasy. Outside, the street was washed between the gold-gray hush of the morning. She wiped her palms on the edge of her sari and moved to the door. When she opened the door, there stood a boy. 12 perhaps, thin arms, dust on his cheeks. The khaki cap on his head was too large, drooping slightly to one side. He held a folded envelope between both hands. Radha Devi, he asked. She nodded. He didn't meet her eyes, just extended the envelope. From the army office in Calcutta. Her fingers hesitated as she took it, already trembling before the paper touched them. She unfolded it with slow, deliberate care, her breath catching as she read the first few words. We regret to inform you. Her world narrowed to those 5 words. The rest blurred and faded. Her knees buckled. She reached for the doorframe, knuckles white, to steady herself against the flood that rose in her chest. Somewhere beyond the ringing in her ears, she heard the voice speak again, soft, uncertain. An apology, maybe. She couldn't tell. He lingered, unsure of what to do, then quietly turned and left, his small footsteps echoing in the silence he left behind. Radha didn't cry, but she knew that would eventually come. She stood there a while longer, paper in hand, trying to breathe like the world hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. Then, slowly, she turned and stepped back inside the dim warmth of the small home she now shared with only her son and daughter. Her husband, her Sanjay, would not be coming home. She sat in the small kitchen, nursing a cup of masala chai, the spiced scent curling weakly in the air. The tea had gone cold, but she cradled it anyway, more for something to hold than anything else. The light from the single window fell across the floor in long, broken lines. Dust drifted in the silence. Mohan entered first, his school satchel slung over one shoulder. His little sister Anika followed closely behind, her braid lopsided from having tied it herself. They paused when they saw her. Radha didn't speak. She just looked at them, and they looked back, eyes wide, unblinking. Children, yes, but not blind, not to this. Mohan set his bag down slowly. Ma? Radha didn't answer right away. She reached out and placed a hand gently on Anika's head, smoothing down the loose strands of hair. It's your father, she said. That was all. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Mohan froze. Anika blinked once, then again, and then, without a word, they moved towards her. They wrapped their arms around her, small hands clutching at her sari. Radha folded them in, holding them tightly, as if by sheer force she could keep the grief from slipping through the cracks. The three of them huddled there on the kitchen floor beneath the quiet window light and wept, not loudly, but deeply, like something being wrung out of them bit by bit. The bell clanged once, sharp, metallic, echoing through the narrow lanes of the textile quarter. It was time to begin. Radha adjusted the end of her sari over her shoulder and stepped through the arched entryway of the garment works. The building loomed over her, tall and sun-bleached, with open windows and rows of iron fans that hummed but barely cooled the air. She had walked this path nearly every day since Sanjay had been conscripted. It had become routine, necessary. But today the weight of the door felt heavier, the sound of the machines harsher. Every movement within the walls of that place was familiar but sharp now, raw in a way it hadn't been before. She passed the row of women at the entrance, most seated on small wooden stools hunched over tables with baskets of folded khaki cloth. Some glanced up as she entered, some did not, but those who knew what had happened, the ones who had heard through the whispers or tight-lipped nods, offered brief looks, not of pity, but of understanding. Loss was not uncommon here. Radha took her usual place by the window where the light fell strongest across the table. The cloth was already stacked, neatly folded colonial military uniforms destined for men who may or may not come home. She smoothed the first one, her fingers running along the seam. It had been her grandmother who taught her how to sew, back when she and Sanjay were first married. She had taken great care to teach her about precision and taking her time. These attributes had helped Radha in her job, and now, as a new widow, she felt as if she would need these skills even more. She picked up her needle, threaded it, and then, just before she pressed it through the fabric, her hand paused. The collar, a thin strip of lining tucked beneath the fold, a space no one would ever think to look. Her heart beat louder than the fans above her. She pulled the needle back, reached for a separate thread, darker, finer, used only for repairs, and began again. But this time her hands moved differently, slower, more deliberate. She knew this was something she could be punished for, severely. But the motion was cathartic, like breathing for the first time in days. She could not stop herself. When she'd finished, she glanced around the factory. No one had seen. She folded the collar closed, and as she did, she saw the words she had sewn. The British will fall. In that moment, Radha Devi began to stitch her grief into resistance. The ceiling fans turned lazily overhead, stirring hot air that carried the scent of cotton dust and machine oil. Radha sat at her station, needle in hand, focused but weary. 7 months had passed since she sewn her first message into a collar. Since then, she had stitched nearly 100 more. Words of rebellion, hope, vengeance, all tucked into the seams of British and Indian-bound uniforms. She was careful, always careful. But that morning, just after second bell, a foreman she didn't recognize approached her station. "Radha Devi," he said, "Supervisor Arjun wants to see you. Now." The words made her breath catch, her needle freeze mid-stitch. For a single, terrible moment, she was sure it had happened. They had found out. She rose slowly, wiping her hands on her sari. Her heart pounded in her ears as she followed the man across the factory floor, past the rows of sewing machines, towards the office tucked in the back of the building. The door creaked as she stepped inside. Arjun stood behind his desk, a clipboard in one hand, the other resting on a bolt of unfinished uniform fabric. He was a tall man with silver threads in his hair, sharp eyes, and the measured calm of someone who rarely showed what he was thinking. The door shut behind her. She kept her voice steady. "You asked for me, sir?" He didn't speak at first, just studied her. Then he gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Please, sit." She did, knees stiff. He set the clipboard down, walked to the door, and locked it. Radha's hands curled into fists in her lap. Her mouth went dry. Then he turned to her and smiled, faint, knowing. "You're the one sewing the messages," he said. Her heart stopped. She opened her mouth to protest, to deny, but no words came. He raised a hand. "Don't. I'm not here to report you." Still, she said nothing. Couldn't. "You're careful," he went on. "Smaller letters, hidden stitches. You space them apart, never in the same place twice. Whoever taught you to sew taught you precision." "My grandmother," Radha whispered, "but she never taught me that." He nodded. "And yet you did it. Why?" She swallowed. "My husband, he died in France. The British sent him, they took him, and they never brought him back." Arjun's expression didn't soften, but something in his eyes shifted, like recognition. "I've lost people too," he said. "Many of us have. That's why we do what we do." Radha's breath hitched. "We?" He leaned in slightly. "There are many of us doing what we can to secure independence from the British Crown. I don't sew messages like you do. In fact, it's the first time I've ever seen that, but I appreciate what you do. Your messages go to the soldiers, if they even see it." Radha's chest tightened. "So what happens now?" "That depends," Arjun said, "on whether you want to do more." This piqued her curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" Arjun sat back in his chair, thoughtful. "There are many things we can do, each with its own level of danger." He paused, then added, "Let me think on it." Radha nodded slowly. "Until then," he said, "keep doing what you're doing. Just continue to be careful." It was nearly 2 weeks before Arjun called her in again. His office door was already open. He stood with his back to her, staring out the window at the courtyard below. The light coming through the slats painted narrow shadows across the floor. "Close the door," he said without turning. Radha obeyed, her heart already ticking faster. Arjun turned slowly. His expression was unreadable but serious. "We have a situation," he said. "One that's delicate." She waited. "There's a shipment leaving next Friday. 2 wagons. Our factory's uniforms are part of it, but this one's different." He moved to his desk, opened a drawer, and withdrew a folded sheet of paper. "There's a weapons cache included this time," he said. "Same delivery, different contractor, but they're moving together. Same wagons, same route." Radha stiffened. "We only found out yesterday. If the resistance can intercept that wagon, it'll be a blow the British won't soon forget." He laid the paper on the desk between them. "These are the manifests. Routes, times, names. We need to get this into the right hands before Friday." Radha stared at it. "And you want me to deliver it?" He nodded once. "You're not a soldier," he said. "You're a seamstress, a mother. You're invisible to them. The guards at the checkpoint might glance at your hands, your basket, but they won't look at you, not in the way they'd look at me." She didn't reply. Arjun stepped closer, his voice lower now. "You won't be alone. A contact will meet you just past the west gate after the noon bell. You give him the paper, nothing else. You don't wait around." Radha glanced down at her palms, calloused, thread-bitten, the hands of someone the world didn't see. "And if they do search me?" she asked quietly. Arjun's reply was firm. "Then we both disappear." A long silence settled. "But if they don't," he added, "then maybe fewer sons don't leave in British uniforms. Maybe fewer husbands die on foreign soil." Radha looked up. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "I'll do it." The midday bell rang hollow across the rooftops of the quarter. Radha walked slower than usual, the basket on her hip feeling heavier than it had any right to. It held only scraps of cloth, a jar of buttons, and a rolled sheet of paper wrapped in muslin tucked beneath a length of hemmed collar like it was nothing at all. But to her, it burned like coal. Her route took her past the narrow alleys near the grain markets, through the outer streets where British patrols were more frequent. She kept her eyes low, her shoulders squared, as Arjun told her. "Move with purpose," he said. "Never walk like you're hiding something." Now, Radha wasn't sure what that looked like anymore. At the checkpoint by the west gate, a pair of British soldiers stood idle in the shade of a banyan tree. One leaned against the trunk, rifle slung over his shoulder. The other traced lazy circles in the dirt with the toe of his boot. She felt them watching her before they spoke. "Where are you off to, madam?" the one leaning against the tree asked, stepping forward. Radha smiled softly, the way she did in the market. "My sister's home. She's mending a tunic for one of the sergeants. I'm bringing her buttons." The other guard motioned toward the basket. "Mind if we take a look?" Her mouth dried, but her smile didn't falter. "Of course, Sahib." She offered the basket with both hands. They glanced through it, lifted the cloth, examined the jar of buttons, even poked at the collar. But they didn't unwrap it. Satisfied, they waved her through. Stay out of the midday heat," one called after her. She nodded and walked on, fighting the urge to run. 2 blocks past the gate, in the shade of a shuttered tea stand, a man waited. Dressed simply, nothing about him drew attention. He didn't look up until she stood within arm's reach. Then, without a word, she lowered the basket, drew the collar roll free, and placed it beside the broken mortar wall near his feet. He didn't thank her, didn't nod, just stepped forward, picked it up, and walked away. Radha remained there just out of view of the 2 guards for an hour. Then she returned to the checkpoint, passed it, and walked home. The fans overhead turned with a slow, tired groan, barely cutting the thick afternoon heat. Radha sat at her station, her needle gliding through fabric with practiced ease. She had become faster these past few months. Faster, quieter, bolder. What began as stitch whispers and collars had grown into something more. Arjun had tasked her with carrying messages, dates, names, locations, all folded into slips of paper and hidden among the uniforms. She was careful, always careful. As a mother of 2 and a widow, no one suspected her. At least, not yet. She had walked the delivery routes through back alleys and dusty lanes, slipping packets to resistance contacts with a nod, a glance, and the briefest exchange. The danger never faded, but she never faltered. Now, with hands steady as ever, she finished the last letter of the phrase, "Free India." She folded the collar shut and smoothed it flat. A small act of defiance sewn into the heart of empire. Across the floor, the other women worked in near silence, the hum of machines, the scrape of chairs, another day. Then, sudden, the double doors slammed open with a thunderclap. 2 British officers entered, Tall, sharp, their movements stiff with purpose. Their boots echoed off the walls, silencing the room more effectively than any shout. Radha didn't look up, but her fingers stilled. They marched past the rows of workers heading straight for the small office at the rear of the factory. Arjun stepped out as if he'd been waiting, his expression calm, his hands behind his back. They spoke in low voices. She couldn't hear the words. Didn't need to. One of the officers reached for his arm, another for the handcuffs. The workers didn't move. No one dared breathe. She looked on as one of the officers started to scan the room. His gaze stopped. He lifted his arm and pointed right at her. This has been World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you find this podcast, and don't forget to throw us a comment and a rating. We are on Facebook. Just search and like the official World War I Stories page. You can also join me on Blue Sky, where I go by the handle WW1Stories_HennyB. World War I Stories is now featured on Rabbit in Red Radio, with new episodes streaming Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. They also have all episodes available on demand. Visit Rabbit in Red Radio for this and many other independent podcasts. And last but not least, would you like your name read on the show? Become a producer by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/World War I Stories. I'm very grateful to everyone who downloads and listens to this show. I'm Henny B, and see you next time on World War I Stories.